Hi, I'm Marina Sirtis, and you're going boldly with Beyond Trek podcast.
This is Beyond Trek Podcast, your source for Star Trek on social media and around the web. I'm Big J.
I'm Watney.
And I'm Dag, the Trivia Master. You can find us on Facebook at Beyond Trek Podcast and on Twitter at Beyond Trek Pod.
Red alert.
So, Watney, you got some N95 masks. That's good.
Yeah, I as you can see, my co-hosts are being very smart.
Being very careful. Yes,
I,
social
on the other
distancing.
hand, I have been isolated and I'm wearing lip gloss, so I'm not going to put mine on.
We got to look
but
pretty for a podcast, right?
I do. Yeah, you have to look. Yeah, look kind of cute. But yeah, I ordered two. And
Do I look good in my
What?
mask?
yeah, it suits you for sure. You look almost like Scorpion.
Dag, are you wearing two of them? What do you got going? Three? Why do you have three masks on? It's not that bad out there.
I double down when I go to the grocery store because, you can never be too careful. And plus the regular masks, like surgical masks, aren't really super protective on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So I double down and then I just sanitize, get all my stuff, go through the checkout after sanitizing again, and then sanitizing before I get in the car. Because you don't realize how much stuff you actually touch, I think, in the store.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But
Now that we're more
anyway,
cautious about it.
I ordered two N95 masks, which are the type of masks that actually keep out viral droplets.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered two reusable ones back when this got serious,
Right.
which I probably should have done before. I still haven't gotten them.
How much you pay for them? Like $300 for one?
No, it was, I think the total order was $70 because they're reusable and they're super sturdy and they have filters you can put in and out. But
well, yeah, those price
I was
gougers are really
hoping to
getting busted.
get mine in. Yeah, I was hoping to get it in because I was going to ship one to my dad who's immunocompromised, but turns out he found a whole bunch from his work anyway. So
right,
he's
gotcha.
safe. I really should look into that order because it's been a minute.
Well, hey, Dag, Dag, let's hear your best Bane impression. You know Bane from The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, but I'm muted.
No, you're not.
Not anymore, but I was doing it.
You were muted.
Oh, I'm muted.
We're going to have a big reminder like, Dag, unmute. No one cared who I was until they put on the mask.
Let's see. My best Bane impression. All right, so this is Bane on a Klingon, on a cloaked Klingon vessel attacking Kirk.
Oh my, okay.
I can see you, Kirk. Can you see me? I mean,
No one knew who I was until I got on the podcast.
no, I just wanted to show these off. That's why I just brought them all.
Those are
These
nice.
were
Those
made
are
by a friend
handmade.
of ours. Yeah, these were made
Beautiful.
by a friend of ours.
How lacy. Wow, you got a
Very
little
cool
surprise on the
here.
inside there.
And then this one is
For the Empire.
for
Wrong
the Empire
franchise.
or the Rebellion, whichever one.
For the
Mhm.
Empire.
And then this is the one I wear when I go
I like
four-wheeling.
I like that
in the
one. That's
desert.
nice.
Go four-wheeling in the desert with your ATV.
Wow.
Whenever I happen to rent one when I'm in Pismo.
This is
That's a
Amazing.
badass mask for sure.
so
Thanks.
I'm gonna have to act with my eyes, but no, I'm gonna have to take this off because I can't drink my prune juice through it.
No,
But,
it's too hot for that.
I know.
guys. It's
Yeah.
fine.
All right. So that's.
We're all social distancing.
Oh, social distancing. Yeah, we're very far from each other. So, ooh, that was fun, man. It feels cooler for you medical professionals that wear these things all day. I mean, hats off to you. I don't know how you do it.
You
because-
are goddamn heroes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for what you do. I know the stress is so immense.
Mhm.
You are the heroes this entire situation.
Yeah.
And we're also hoping that you get the opportunity to take care of yourselves as well, even though you are on the front lines.
Yep.
Yeah. Make sure you self-care. Your downtime is your precious downtime, and we're all thinking about you.
Yes, we are.
So.
Yes, we are. Well, without further ado, what do we have on the agenda today?
Well, we are continuing our retrospective on Star Trek Picard. Today's episode is about Space Legolas.
Space Legolas, yes, or Elnor, and we've got a GIF here. Is that just the one? We can play that one through the episode.
Oh no, there's more. There's more.
I knew you would.
Choose to live.
Choose to live.
Oh, nice. Choose to live. I like
Alex
Space
Kurtzman
Legolas.
really loves that line. Choose to live.
So he was. I'd go. Dag, why don't you go ahead and start us? I like this, guys. We're going to do the character assassination. Retrospective of Space Legolas.
It's going to be hard to speak ill of baby Elnor.
Oh,
what are your thoughts, Dag? Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So for those who maybe haven't watched Picard or need a refresher, Elnor was a young boy who was orphaned during the devastation of the supernova that impacted the Romulan Empire. And he ended up living with the Kowat Malat, which are essentially space ninja nuns who abide by a philosophy called absolute candor, which is you are honest to a fault. There isn't even like a semblance of holding back information. You just give it out, which is something cool about Elnor, where he's like constantly speaking that truth throughout the episode or the series. Picard comes to him and asks Elnor to bind his blade to his quest in a very fantasy moment. And Elnor comes along for the ride, and he gets to enjoy life on the spaceship with Rios, and he ends up fighting alongside Hugh at some point, and he ends up at the crescendo helping to subdue the synths while they try to figure out how to stop this signal from calling Synthulu. Elnor was portrayed by actor Evan Evagora, his first outing with Star Trek. And I personally feel that Evan nailed the role for what he was given.
Exactly. Yes.
Elnor didn't have a lot of scenes, I feel like, thinking and just in retrospective. There were a number of episodes where Elnor was just sort of there on the sidelines and not featured as much as I would have wanted, which kind of makes him like my fan favorite of the series. Jay, what did you think about Elnor?
I thought that as a character, he was a lot of fun, and he was funny, but not comic relief funny. He was kind of like that naive young kid, and he was very wholesome. He had a mission. He had a pact with Picard, and he was going to do everything he could to fulfill that pact and honorably. But he was born and raised on this one planet. Really hadn't seen he hadn't gotten out of his neighborhood. He's like a neighborhood kid. He knows his area where he's at. He hasn't seen a whole lot of the galaxy or anything else. And that comes up because he's just he tells it like he sees it. He's a very not a lot of bullshit kind of guy. And I've got to tell you, I had many moments with Elnor that I liked. The funniest, I think, was probably during when they arrived on Free Cloud, before they did the caper on Free Cloud. Everyone got their customized, pop-up advertisements, and Elnor's like, I didn't get one.
Right.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I didn't get one. The gift ready to go. And that was it's stuff like that. That was just, it was humorous without him being comedy relief. And that's what I liked. And Choose to Live. Yes, he was quite the badass. He was very good with the sword. Watney, how about you?
I like Elnor. I think his costume design is probably my favorite in the series so far. And I wish we had seen more of him. It's unfortunately he suffered from poor writing and poor usage. Like he's such a powerful character, physically extremely adept, to the point where he can make guns in space not matter because he has a sword. Like that's pretty big. um so I think he was great when we saw him. um I think that he kind of broke out whenever they were on the cube, and he comes into Picard's rescue and stays behind despite Picard um telling him you're free from this oath. That's not how really an oath works. First
Right.
of all,
It's not. He's going to see
Picard,
it
come
through.
on, like, yeah, and honestly, like, you bind this guy to your cause, and then you don't use him like the way that you wanted him to help you. Um, he's kind of like Picard's muscle, he's like the
Absolutely.
super agile, lithe, like very lean guy who's gonna protect him, and then you tell him not to do that, and he's not gonna listen. He's there to have his own adventure. He's there to do his own thing. Not everyone in the show, which I think something I really liked, was at the whim of Picard. He kind of did his own thing in the end, and I really appreciated that, and I hope we get to see more of him.
Well, I
in
think he
season 2.
he didn't want to have him risk his life. Well, to a point, because Picard has known this kid ever since he was a little boy. Taught him fencing, spent a lot of time with him, and it almost seemed like Picard treated him like I don't know about a son, maybe a son. It seemed like there was this connection they had, and I wonder if some of that was because Picard didn't get to spend that kind of time with Renee, with his nephew Renee, his brother's son. And as you know, in the events of Star Trek Generations, they were burned in a fire. And and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm almost positive that before the events of season 4, it was what was the name of the episode after Best of Both Worlds Part 2? It was when he went back to France. Family, yes, family, kind of recuperate. Was that the first time that Picard had met Renee, or had it just been a while? He knew Renee when he was much younger. I'm a little foggy on that point, but anyway, the point I'm making is it seemed like maybe he wanted to do things differently. He was always out in space. He wasn't really a family man. He said that to Riker at the start of Encounter Farpoint when Riker came aboard. He was kind of
Your job will
lamenting
be
about
to take care of the children.
right. He said, "I'm not a family man," and Starfleet gave him a ship full of kids. So I think he kind of took it as, this is my chance to have a son or a nephew and connect and have that bond. So he was looking out for him. You bind this person, this young man, to your cause and to your quest, yet you don't want to have his life on your hands. You don't want to be the one that, okay, I watched him sacrifice himself for me, because Picard already seen that done, and he's still mourning that loss from when Data did that. So,
But he asked him to do that. Like, he knew it's a lost cause. That's the whole point of like why they only bind themselves to lost causes, which is fucking weird. First of all, why is that a thing?
Why do they only bind themselves to lost causes? I don't know.
And the lost cause thing is a double-edged thing, because when Picard says that the lost cause he knows is because of his disease, but the other crew members think it's a lost cause because of what they're up against. So that's a very interesting line, and I'm curious what it goes into the culture of the Quatmalat, where they only take these kind of contracts or these kind of oaths. So and I don't know if Picard's, Elnor's older now, so I'm not sure we can maybe equate his feelings to his nephew, who he didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with, but he's certainly known him very long, but it's kind of like when he was a child. So he doesn't have like a very strong bond, in my opinion. It's not like he was there during his formative years. He kind of was there as a kid, and then he left, and then now he's back. And honestly, I think Elnor just wanted to get the hell off that planet. I think he wanted to go have his life, go explore and have his life, and go and see space and see other worlds. And
kind of reminded me of Alec from Last Starfighter. Remember Last Starfighter? Kid at the trailer park, and played the game, got recruited into the Space Force, whatever it was called, and so yeah, it's the Luke Skywalker wants to get off of Tatooine and explore, see things. So yes, he was
like, okay, I've trained myself so much within the boundaries of what I know. I want to go test that. I'm the peak of where I'm at. I want to go test that out in the wild and see what I can do. And it turns out he's a very adept fighter, and we're going to get into his relationship with a few other characters who he had particularly good scenes with, or
let's hear that
scene with. So we've kind of talked about his relationship with Picard. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I like to think of that relationship as sort of a fallen hero worship. He idolized Picard as a child. That's very well presented in the show. And then Picard leaves, and while he thinks fondly of Picard, he at the beginning there, he is very reluctant to be civil with him. He's mad.
Yeah, now you need me, so I'm gonna let you know how I feel before I go and do what you want me to do.
Yeah, and I really kind of support that attitude. I wish they had been able to provide some more context for the growth that they had, because it's mentioned in that episode, and then just sort of Elnor just tags along with everything else, and there really isn't sort of a moment where Picard can redeem himself with Elnor. And then halfway through the series, Elnor's like, well, I'm going to go hang out with this XB over here. Cheers. That felt a little weird to the character binding a blade. We're going to jump through the spatial, whatever it was, on the board in the Queen Cell. And Elnor, having bound his blade, doesn't just be like, well, there could be dangers where you're going. I'll jump through with you. He's just like, well, I'll stay here and give you time to go. It's like, we have a teleporter. Just hop on, we'll bounce, it's cool.
Come on, let's go. We're leaving.
Hugh, you can come with us, it's fine. That would have been very interesting. But the fallen hero worship there. Elnor is very affectionate towards Picard through the series.
Right, it's hard not to be. I mean, they all know him as Jean-Luc Picard, so it's like he did all these things. He's the glue, Actually, Rafi's the glue, in my opinion. Mama Rafi's the glue, because she's actually getting shit done. She's drunkenly convincing the ship, convincing Starfleet to let them pass this huge security barrier to get into the cube. She's like getting the La Serena and Rios on board. She is she's the doing all. She's still the commander. She's doing all the stuff. She's still the XO. She's getting all the shit done. And Picard's kind of still the leader. So anyway, that's That's more of a Rafi Picard comment.
Yeah.
But I know we had a list of people we want to talk about, but I also want to add Hugh to that because
Oh yeah.
Hugh and Elnor had a really amazing buddy cop kind of dynamic.
It was short, but it was a great
it was one of the
team-up.
things that excited me mid-season. I was like, okay, I'm gonna actually keep watching. This is awesome.
And it was a very quick connection too. You know, and
Mhm.
they did bother to give that throwaway line is he found a cause even more lost than Picard's, which was that of the XBs and their treatment under whatever government was actually ruling them. And he and Hugh connected very quickly with very little, I don't know, very little fuss. I don't know the words to say there.
They
just,
did. They really
hey, they were
clicked.
buddies. Cool.
Right. And
And
he was
they're
like, I'm so glad you're here. You know, like, we're going to fucking take this cube over and kill those Romulans and rah, and then boom.
And
You
Evan
know?
and Jonathan had really good on-screen presence together too. And that is something that you see very often criticized in other shows and stuff like this, where two characters are put in the same room together and the actors don't have that chemistry to make it believable. But, you know, I think I was very invested in the urgency of Hugh and Elnor on the cube. I would almost venture to say that I was more vested in Hugh and Elnor on the cube than I was in the finale.
Nepenthe.
Not even
The
Nepenthe,
finale.
The
Yeah.
finale.
When
There was
we
more
got,
urgency.
we got the I'm pretty sure that the episode Nepenthe, I think was 7, right? Episode 7.
Nepenthe?
Yeah, Nepenthe. I
It
remember.
feels like it was about number 7.
It was around episode 7. We
Sure.
got not only Troy Riker and Picard meeting up again, but we also, I think in the same episode, didn't we get the cube fight with Narissa? So that was like one of my favorite episodes because not only are you pulling my emotions out on Nepenthe, but you're also like all the action with these two actors who have incredible chemistry on screen. By far the best writing because they were going back and forth so much. And then 7 comes in again. It's just awesome. That was one of my favorite episodes.
And Narissa's your favorite, so I'm sure you're excited about her doing battle with Elnor.
And she was so perfectly insidious in that episode too. It just captured everything about her. So,
yeah, I love her. So anything more we want to say on Hugh? Because I feel like, you know, you had Picard and then you kind of had him bond with Hugh kind of immediately after, you know.
No, I think you hit it.
Elnor is he's still such a baby. He's like the kid who knows karate but doesn't know like social order,
Right,
like
no social
stuff.
skills, but
Like
he's a
he can
triple
like
black
totally
belt.
defend you when your lunch money's getting taken, but then like he doesn't know like how to tell a girl like he thinks that she's pretty. So
I was
my God, you're
totally
right.
gonna make the commentary that Elnor is the Dungeons and Dragons. The Dungeons and Dragons player put all of their skills into Elnor being a martial.
yeah, he's
badass.
power leveled.
But
Oh,
the wisdom score is low, intelligence is moderate. He doesn't have a strength modifier. He's got super high dex, pretty okay constitution, and everything else is in how to
Agility.
use these weapons as a fashion.
Yeah, he's a crunchy gamer, not an RP gamer for sure.
Yeah.
But he's still so he's still like a baby with a sword sometimes. It's like but that's what makes me love him, and I'm really hoping he starts to hone in more on that social side through in season 2. I am interested and invested kind of in his story because we didn't get to see a whole lot of him because we're so focused on the first season of exposition and
Right.
everything else that's going on. And now we can focus more on, okay, what's the story of season 2? We don't have to go around and gather all these people.
He's
They're
already
all
there.
already in one place. So let's see what kind of relationships develop and what's going to happen. So,
I
yeah,
hope he gets his
I think-
time. I do.
yeah, same. Definitely same. So let's talk about Rafi
Okay.
And Elnor?
Yep.
and Elnor. Dak, I want to know what you wanted, because you wanted to talk about Rafi and him. So I'm curious what
What was the connection you
Well,
were making
the
there?
connection.
I mean, the connection there is more, in my opinion, it's more implied. And I've been thinking about like trying to find moments between Raffi and Elnor that made sense to the scene in question. And that's the scene where, having believed Picard has died, Elnor cries in Raffi's arms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Raffi is Mama Raffi, and she just loves everybody who's having a hard time.
Right.
Anybody
Yeah.
who's down on their luck gets her attention.
Yeah, they're commiserating in that moment too.
Right.
You know?
They are commiserating. And maybe that's the only real part there. There aren't a number of scenes that come to mind when I think of Raffi and Elnor. So maybe this relationship is more like a footnote. It was something where Elnor, there was a measure of trust there that Elnor could come to her and just poof, be, not turned away. Anybody else, it might have seemed weird. And I've said in the past that I probably would have preferred Rios in that role, just to get two dudes having a tender moment on screen. But we got Raffi
especially
and him instead.
Yeah, well, Rafi and Rios both had their own kind of relationship with Picard. I think in Rios and if it was Rios and Elnor, it would have been a hero thing. Like, our hero has fallen. Like, we knew him, we got to meet him, and now he's like fallen.
Yeah.
But with Rafi, it's like I had a very close working relationship with this person. I know his flaws. I see those. I accept those. I love him anyway. And Elnor is like, he's sad because of course he's sad. He's still working through how to deal with the world and seeing the death of someone he knew since his childhood, probably someone who was still really important to him, but he had like a mythic idea of like that, and then got to meet him again and protect him and do that oath. Maybe he had dreams one day of like finding his sword in Picard's claws or something. I would like to think that that's that was a thing, but
Dag, was it you or
it's just
Watney?
a different dynamic.
Right. Watney, I think it might have been you. It was either you or Dag. We were talking off air about that scene. You have to remind me about how at the last episode of Picard, you had Raffi and Elnor, then Rios and Seven of Nine, but that should have been swapped. It would have meant a lot more had it been Elnor and Rios talking together and Raffi and Seven of Nine.
Elnor and Rios would have given me that male tender moment, and then Seven of Nine and Raffi would have at least been a preface,
prelude,
prelude to them holding hands and getting closer in the final
literally
scene.
The last out, the last scene,
Mm-hmm.
the zoom out.
I had to rewind it, be like, wait a minute, did I just see what I thought I saw?
I know, and
it was a Kelto game. That was amazing, right?
Yeah, but there was also a bottle of alcohol next to Rafi, which makes me think that they're foretelling that it's not going to be a healthy relationship, because Seven has issues with that herself. Rafi Seven may not have issues, but she definitely uses it as a tool. And then Rafi definitely has issues because she has to remove her privileges from the replicator. So
yeah, I think that would have been a much better setup. And Dag is right. What's the crime in having a male tenderness moment, and why is that is kind of what we're still in with TV and movies. It's like you can't have two guys on screen share a moment like that. I mean, Elnor is like a kid. We've accepted that he's a kid. He's young. He's well, I don't want to say naive, but he's what's the word I'm looking for?
He is naive, absolutely.
Right.
We're playing pretend. Oh, we're lying. Like,
right.
That's naivete. That is what that is.
I mean, what would have been the harm? And Watney, and I'm going to get this from both of you, from Watney and Dag. So what would have been the harm of having the two of them, Elnor and Rios, share that scene? And why is it that here we are in 2020 and we're still not getting a kid with an older brother figure shoulder to cry on or something?
Yeah, I think in the case of these specific writers for Picard, I don't think they would have shied away from two men expressing themselves together and confiding in each other and that sort of thing. I don't think that this set of writers is scared of doing that. I do think that they looked at it, and I do think it would have been better the other way. I will say I think it would have been better if Seven and Rafi had some kind of interaction before they started like hooking up, which is fine. Maybe they were like all still like in adrenaline mode, and then they finally like were able to relax and then get to know each other. But Elnor is the kid, Rafi's the mom. So that's what they were thinking, pairing them together. Rios and Seven are the hard asses. So they're going to commiserate in this much the same way, whereas Elnor and Rafi are going to commiserate in the same way. Not that Rafi isn't a hard ass, but she is more mom than hard ass, I think. I think she kind of masks that maternal instinct with her badassness, which is her character. So I think that they were a good pair. They were paired up well in that sense that they would have mourned in the same way. But I think that it would have been a great opportunity to not only get that male to male interaction of emotional interaction from Rios and Elnor, and also prelude. I mean, I can see it both ways. I think that it would have been probably better the other way, but I understand why they went the way they did.
Okay, Dag?
I'm really inclined to agree with Watney here. I think that they put those two together for those reasons. And, you know, it may not even have occurred to them to think about that kind of representation on screen. And even though it was represented with Elnor and Rafi, it did kind of subvert the trope of the woman crying into the man's arms. You have Elnor, a man, and it's okay for him to be tender, and it's okay for him to be tender with a woman. And that also may not be something that is, you know, highly represented on screen as well.
Is it okay, though, because he's been viewed as the kid, not because he has a masculine personality?
I think it absolutely is okay.
I think Elnor's actually a very, and he's a very elevated masculine personality now that I say that, because you have like the toxic masculinity type aspect where you like you're putting yourself in this own cage of I have to be buff, I can't show any emotion. But Elnor is kind of like he's the warrior, he's the elevated masculine, you know, and he's not afraid to be himself. He's not afraid to express himself, and I think that that's kind of what I see now that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you saying, Dag?
No, I just I've been trying to just like put it together, and like my brain is very used to just making sense of all the different situations and being okay with all of them. And in any of the cases, I thought it was really cool that Elnor was free to be vulnerable without self-shaming, first of all. And, you know, because that whole stereotype, men don't cry.
Right.
And men can internalize that and hold themselves back from sharing those kinds of expressions. But also that, you know, nobody watching that would dare call Elnor weak or whatever the terms are for a dude that can freely cry in front of a woman or anybody. I thought that was fantastic.
I think it's because he was also raised by warrior woman, and Rafi kind of like taps the feeling of that a little bit for him. Like he feels really comfortable around her, and probably why he also feels really comfortable around Seven.
Right.
Those are
he was raised by strong women.
He was raised by strong women, and I'm sure he's like gravitates to that in terms of like, I've had a shit day, I need to go cry and I'm gonna look for Rafi because he's the closest thing I got. Yeah, I mean, I thought that they were really beautiful scenes no matter which way you look at it. However, there was a missed opportunity. They were all for nothing
Yeah.
because Picard gets resurrected like the next scene. So who the fuck cares what else happened?
Jay.
Why do we care if they were mourning? It doesn't matter. He's going to be resurrected. I thought Picard was actually dead. But then I was like, oh yeah, the golem is kind of like the unshot gun, you know? So you have to like think about that and whatever.
Right.
Jay, you make me want to put on our schedule a Miles O'Brien, Julian Bashir appreciation episode.
Yes.
So we can get our bros in arms.
Bros in arms. Yes, we should put that on the books. Well, it's not something that we get a lot of. And you're talking about Bashir and O'Brien, and that was mid '90s that we see that broship there. And I agree with what Watney said. The way that they did it, pairing in that scene of mourning, Elnor with Raffi and Rios with Seven of Nine. Yes, I'm not saying that it didn't look like it was just out of nowhere and like this was a bad matchup. I totally get what you're talking about. It was more of a young man with a mother figure, and then your two rogues. So sure, it was fine how it was. It would have been better had they switched those two and pair them up differently, because it's like what Dag said, you have this opportunity where you can have something that you don't see much of, or at least I don't see much of on TVs and movies, is the whole boys don't cry kind of thing, and especially not in front of another dude, you know, and you don't get moments like that often. I think one of the few that jumps into mind was the Fast and Furious. Was it movie number 6, 7, 8? The one that was Paul Walker's last movie, but there had to be a lot of like CGI and his brother stand in with, because he
I think he was
killed, and it was the 7th one. At the end, him and Vin Diesel's character were looking at each other and just in that moment sharing that family, that bond, that respect, and you don't get that much. It's kind of this Hollywood don't have two guys in a moment kind of thing, unless you're doing men on men gay porn, like then it's okay. Anything else, no. There's no why don't we have that middle ground? Why is it either it's this or that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's because of the way that society has normalized men suppressing their emotions in order to seem like more men. So the thing is the more you do it, the more of a man you are. And it's like an arms race, basically, until someone explodes. Or, like when men are much less likely to have attempted suicides because they're not crying for help. You
say attempted because they're more likely to.
They're more likely to have a successful suicide.
Right.
Okay.
That is because they have issues expressing themselves, and their depression rates are higher. Okay. And I think it's because they feel they don't have access to what a lot of women do, which are these close bonds where you're not just you're not just communicating to exchange information like a lot of guys do. You're communicating in these female relationships to maintain a relationship, to express yourself and your emotions, to have connection. And so a lot of men don't feel like if they do that, that makes them less of a man. When in reality, that really just releases them from the toxic masculinity that society has kind of created, like, oh, we're men, we're superior, we're alpha, the alpha male, the beta male, all that nonsense, and I think, unfortunately, it wasn't in this case a thing. We didn't get to see that on screen. But I hope that moving forward in the show, we do get a lot of moments like that. I think that would be beautiful and great. I hope we get more character development with the crew itself, because I think we have a unique build out of people. The first season was kind of all over the place, I think, because we were running around to get everybody.
Right. Yeah.
It was a big fetch quest, basically.
That's a new word.
So now that we have everyone, basically. So now that we have everybody, I'm hoping that everyone starts to get more, and I'm sure they will, but we'll just see how the writers have to do with that.
Right. And here's the thing that gets me, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to depicting a salacious brother and sister, inappropriate, kind of thing between like Narek and Narissa, very Game of Thrones, like, brother and your sister hooking up kind of thing. That's easy. Don't even bat an eye on that. Yeah, we can do that. When you have two female characters that bond, it takes them like, 3.5 minutes to bond together and be close and be hooking up. Yeah, sure. We can do that. No problem. That's easy. But hold on, let's pump the brakes now when we want to have two guys, being upset at the same time over an event. It's like, okay, whoa.
Well, they primed us with Game of Thrones for 8 years, right?
Yeah,
to maybe a decade fully after you look at the whole thing, but they primed us for that. And honestly, that relationship in Game of Thrones was way more explicit, way more like obvious, that was how it was. That's the nature of those characters' relationships.
I mean, I think it's no more obvious than how Bran caught the two in
but
the
you're not
act.
going to see that on a CBS show. You're going to get the implication. It's not an HBO where you're going to see that happen.
Sure.
It's CBS, and they're going to imply it. And honestly, it is what it is. I think they were kind of capitalizing on the taboo-ness of Game of Thrones by writing them the way they did.
I don't know. Just incest came so easily for them, but you can't have a young boy grieve the loss of a father figure with a dude that's like, I don't know.
How in Game of Thrones stuff, we're making the comparisons, like where are those scenes with guys in Game of Thrones? What do we see? I'm thinking Jaime and his brother, Tyrion, maybe.
That's about it.
Jon Snow and
the Brotherhood.
Thor, what's his name? The redheaded guy, Tormund.
Yes.
I need to rewatch it actually.
Okay, that was a good bro moment.
There were a few soft moments between brothers in arms in Thrones. I'm even branching out into other, and we're going way off subject here, but
that's fine. I'm okay with it.
Like Lord of the Rings, you've got Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas, and the three of them share a very tight brother-in-arm connection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No man in Lord of the Rings is the always super stoic, don't touch me, don't talk to me kind of guy.
Multifaceted, three-dimensional.
All the protagonist men in Lord of the Rings are very open and feeling and affectionate, and nobody gives them crap for it.
It's beautiful. It's like a reverse Bechdel test. It's like Bechdel test. Like you have the Bechdel test is if you have two women on screen, they each have separate names, and they talk about something that isn't related to a man.
Right.
Then in that case, it passes the Bechdel test. And I'm probably butchering the name. Whatever. I've been reading it for years, so I'm just saying what I know.
I've heard it by name. I didn't know that's what it was.
The reverse Bechdel test is, and what we should do is you have two guys on screen that talk about their emotions, and they each have names, like, or maybe something like, maybe not names, but it would be cool to have something like that where you like, oh, does this pass the test for men? Is where they don't just talk about exchanging information, they talk about their feelings with one another. I think that would be like pretty neat.
One thing I do want to consider between the three of us is that, we all are pursuing our own exposés into whatever media we consume, and we all consume very different media on a frequent basis, aside from Star Trek, of course.
Right.
And so it could also just be that we don't see it because we don't expose ourselves to that kind of media as frequently as we could. It's out there. I just don't watch a lot of TV anymore.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting that within our spaces, we're kind of noticing like the same things.
Right,
And
right.
we have the similar opinions about within the space what needs to happen to elevate it, I think. And it's not just about fitting things in for like a social justice advocate like agenda. It's about elevating the art to a level that's more three-dimensional, more enriched, more developed. It's not just about fitting things in. It's about these are things that should happen in real life. They probably do happen. But with guys, if there's any expression of emotion, it's not going to be with other guys. I guarantee you, it's not going to be in a group.
Right.
It's going to be one-to-one. And I'm sure it's happening, but it's still taboo within a group.
It happens.
And that's the kind of thing you have to show online that it's okay.
Right. Well, and it happens so infrequently that you can count it. You can count how many times that you've seen that. There was we did the Deep Space Nine with Julian Bashir and Miles O'Brien. There's Lord of the Rings with the Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas. And then to a degree also the Frodo and Samwise. You have oh crap!
Interestingly, that
what was the other one?
While you remember that one,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the Netflix original cartoon specials are doing this really well.
Okay.
Voltron, Legendary Defender, She-Ra, Princesses of Power, The Dragon Prince. Each of those shows has moments of affection between two or more dudes who are not related or in a relationship.
Right.
And the age ranges vary. In Voltron, it's men of about the same age.
Mm-hmm.
In Princesses of Power, you've got some father figures, and in The Dragon Prince, you've got a sort of a mentor to a child, as well as a couple of parent figures in these roles. And so, that's where I'm looking at to see these relationships fulfilled. And
it's out there.
That's a cool thing.
Yeah, Game of Thrones was the one I was drawing a blank on with Jon Snow and Tormund. And spoilers if you haven't seen it. Have any of you seen Shameless?
No.
I have not.
Okay, well there was. I don't want to give up anything, but basically this topic was covered in a way that at first seemed like, okay, what the hell? This is just a salacious kind of thing, and ended up being very believable and probably the most so unexpectedly in regards to male on male relationship, but you can count them on one hand how often that happens. And I think that this opportunity with Elnor, hopefully they will come back around to that. I don't think that there's any reason why they can't. And in the second season, you can have more of a bond between Rios and Elnor. Like, I'm gonna teach this kid how to fly a ship, or he's gonna here's advice on how to talk to women, or just the guy stuff. There's a foundation there, but it can still be a friendship that's built upon, like the Elnor's that wholesome little brother that's a triple black belt that you said he could kick anyone's butt, but he's naive. So there's a lot of potential there.
Now I want to flip the script, and I want to talk about Elnor and Narek.
Okay.
And Narissa.
Two Romulans that, and Narissa can come in there too. As these guys are all the same race, and they each seem to have very competing goals. But in regards to their relationships to each other, Elnor and Narissa were adamantly oppositional. There was never going to be any kind of alliance between the two of them. They were going to fight to the death if given the chance.
It's so interesting you point out the obvious thing that they're the same race. But I didn't really like I mean, I knew that they were, but it's not like something that they talk about
Right.
in the show. And it's like it's almost like they're treated so separately. You know, it's a very good I think portrayal of how within a race you can have people who look different, you can have people who act different, you can have people in different clans, different groups, different secret societies, different warrior societies who are at odds with each other. Now I would like to know your thoughts, both of you, I guess, on Narek and Elnor's like interactions, because they were pretty like few and far between. I think that what we saw was Elnor like putting his knife against Narek's throat when he got into La Serena towards the end, and was like, choose to live, and Narek's like, I definitely choose to live.
Well, yes. I very
Like
much
finally somebody answers it and doesn't macho their way out of the situation, because I know it's stupid to do that.
I just want to point out that for a guy who's been brought up under absolute candor, he is a sneaky son of a bitch. Like, you'd think somebody like that would announce his presence first instead of showing up, one, with a corkscrew kick to the back of the head on Vashti, two, dropping down on 3 dudes out of nowhere on a Borg cube. Like, how did he even get up there?
The absolute candor is he will not only kill you with his honesty, but he may also kill you with his sword. The candor involved in being sneaky is like, look, I'm better than you. Haha, I got you. Like,
right.
I'm being sneaky in a way that's proving to you that I'm better than you.
Right. You
like,
could have been you could have been dead, but I'm going to give you the choice. Like, think about it.
Yeah, and you're outmatched. So
right.
Oh,
right.
here's our Elnor and Hugh moment.
Yeah, he was just so upset. You can tell his acting. Look at that beautiful shot. I do think that the Borg cube set was amazing.
Yeah. It was really nice.
I just love Elnor. Like, the more I think about it, I just think, was I inbutting? I just want him to get more aware, and I think a big part of his development throughout the series is that he will become more like less like the kid who will punch out someone for stealing lunch money, and more like the kid who has social awareness on the playground. He's probably going
to get the growth arc that Wesley deserved.
Yes, I can see that.
Shout out to Will.
Yes.
I mean, I say this so hopefully, hindsight, looking at the season, I was very disappointed. But if I look at things granularly, like Elnor and his arc, I do want to see where that goes. I will watch for that at least.
He and Narek were at odds. He even specified straight up, like, I don't like you. And while Narek was telling the tale of Gan Madan, Elnor was rolling his eyes and almost mocking the belief in that.
I wonder if he'd heard that before.
Which, yeah, I was just thinking my thing. Wait, Elnor, you knew about this thing the whole time, and you're just now telling us that you knew about it? We could have saved us so much weirdness.
The Zhat Vash are boogeymen. They're not supposed to exist.
Right, but
they're like worse than the Tal Shiar.
Oh, you mean those guys
but
that
it doesn't.
Me of that fairy tale I saw that one time? Tell us about the fairy tale.
Yeah, it's like, oh, not only are you Zhat Vash, but you believe in this. It's like, of course, it's Candor because he's rolling his eyes because he grew up in a serious clan of warriors. I mean, not that the Zhat Vash isn't, but they're definitely different. And obviously they fought before because Narissa knew exactly how he moved, knew exactly his fighting style, was able to taunt him into putting his weapon down. Like,
well, do you think he's going to challenge that jawline? I mean, forget about it.
Look, he's got a jawline to do.
But Narissa's just make a grown man cry. I mean, you're not going to.
She make me cry.
She's got a jawline forever. I love it.
Cutscene to Jay before the show. Marissa's jawline. Kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. The camera
I mean,
was just like, no, we're not going to show that. On
Right, her
she
jawline's
kind of
so
knows
good in
what
a dag
buttons
blur. There
to
you go.
push.
Yeah,
She knows
there
what
we go.
buttons to push with everyone.
Yeah.
I think, like,
Yeah, no, she's an expert
except for
at
her brother, who she's emotionally compromised with, which is very weird to say. I know it's dumb, but she like wants to just be around him.
You're giving me the
After
EBGBs.
the cube crashed. After the cube crashes, she wants to like, hey, let me show you my fucking treehouse. And then he goes back, he just takes the grenades and leaves. And
Yeah.
she's like, well, clearly we're not on the same page anymore.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I'm gonna take these and dip.
yeah. And I'm sure he's weirded out by it now after falling in love with Soji.
now,
so.
right now he is. Jeez Louise. Please
Anyway,
get these images out of my
let's
head.
talk
Lonnie.
about Elnor. Yeah. And Narek. I mean, you make a good point about the whole like around the fire thing. I don't like you.
Yeah. no,
Look at that. He's a great
doesn't
actor,
like
I
Narek.
think.
I think he moves forward with Narek because Rios and Raffi have expressed a trust in him, and it's sort of the enemy of my enemy. Like these synths are going to kill everybody. You just want to kill them, and so right now, let's stop the synths. But got my eye on you, boy.
Right. I'm watching you.
I mean, if he could sneak up into La Serena without anybody noticing until that blade is at Narek's throat, and then everybody jumps back in surprise.
I'm
Yeah.
sure he had security clearance for La Serena because he was kind of the bodyguard.
Still kind of scary.
Right.
So.
But he just showed up with the sword out of nowhere, and Rios and Raffi should have been in his line of sight, and even they were surprised. That's cool.
Yep.
Him and Narissa, again, straight up, nothing but malevolence between the two. They would have fought and killed each other on that cube.
I legit loved the scenes with them though. Like
Yeah,
I loved
riveting.
the fight. Like it was good. It was
Yeah.
good. It was intense. The acting was great, of course, because Narissa was in the scene. You know, and they're just the peak of themselves. They're in their primes. They're, you know, physically the most fit. They're fucking Romulans fighting each other. I mean, what is better on screen? I love it. I love that.
And you know, it dawns on me, thinking back to Elnor and Raffi. Elnor gets very affectionate very quickly with the women leads in this show. With 7 of 9, she shows up and wipes out the Romulans, and Elnor's right there in her arms because Hugh died. So that there is a precedent there for that.
Well, I think that takes us back
that
to...
That means 7 and Raffi are going to be Elnor's mommies in season 2.
No!
Yes,
Look at
yes.
it.
Mom and mom. Oh, yeah.
Why am I so excited? Like, I'm mad that they're together. I'm mad that
Don't be
they
a hater.
ended up together because there was no prelude. Like, that I'm not hating on the pairing moving forward. I'm hating on, like, there's nothing before to say that. Like, show me on screen, please, something. Like, that's why I'm upset. I would love to see that. I think that's gonna be fucking great.
How are we going to do like you said, with Raffi in the bottle and that sort of temptation being there? Is season 2 going to just move right beyond that? Is it even going to address it? Will alcohol just be a coping skill that nobody has any side effects from? Or do you think that they're going to find a way to put together a 24th century science fiction dysfunctional relationship between two women, one of whom is ex-Borg and the other one is a tinfoil conspiracist?
It's important to show lesbian relationships that
Are normal?
are not perfect. It's
They're
important
not
to
utopian,
show
just
that
like
it's not
everybody
just for the
else's.
male gaze.
Right.
It's very important to show that on screen, and I hope
Yes.
that we get a dynamic, like tumultuous. I'm sorry, Raffi and 7, a tumultuous relationship.
Well, let's go back to
Yeah.
what's easy to depict from Hollywood when it comes to two women. Simple, easy. We'll do that all day. Like we said, two guys, that's a taboo. We can't have any emotions between two dudes. But you put two women together, and you have these men writing women all day. They could turn a whole season out of it.
Yeah, and I think that it is still important like within their own circles to see that, both
Right.
of them. And I'm very glad that we are getting to see that. You know, it's easy to show lesbians on screen, unfortunately, because of the fetishization that lesbians have
Mhm.
with the male gaze. And it is a little bit, you know, in a lot of instances it is catering to that. But I think hopefully in Picard it's not going to be like that, that they're going to have like a rough relationship, a normal relationship, a relationship with conflict. You know, they each have their own baggage, but maybe
Yes.
they're finding solace in each other. But sure, that like honeymoon phase lasts X amount of months. So but yeah, and I think it was easy for them to do that, but at the same time, like Seven was such like a sex symbol out of
Mhm.
Voyager that like a lot of people are upset about that. About it happening that way, you know,
Well,
like
she was
she's
brought on
supposed to be with
explicit.
Chakotay.
Well, but she was brought
Where's
on explicitly
Chakotay?
for
You know,
her assets to attract to the younger male
exactly.
demographic.
So when you have a character start there,
Mhm.
point A, and now we see her so many years later at point E in her development, point Z in her
Yeah.
development,
Mhm.
you know, you're subverting expectations in a beneficial way, but a way that's going to upset people who saw her originally.
Right.
So, which
I'm
if
all for it.
yeah, I mean, I am too. I'm not
I just wish
upset.
it
I'm
had
just
been-
saying
yeah.
there's a reality here that you can't like just say, "Oh, you're an asshole." Sure, but this is a reality for a lot of fans. I'm okay with it being like that, but that is unfortunately
My
why
prediction
people
in
got
season
into her.
Yep. My prediction in season 2 is that Elnor is going to find an attraction with Girardi. I think those two are going to pair up, and he's going
No,
to
Soji before
yes.
that.
Ooh,
But Girardi and Rios are already kind of an item.
Don't remind
Girardi
me.
and Rios are already an item. I would like to see
Soji.
Elnor and
Okay.
Soji. That would
all
be
right.
kind
You're
of
right.
cute.
Elnor and Soji would be very cute because they both kind of fit. You know, they're both at that naive young phase of life. Okay, you sold me. Yeah. And you're right. And Elnor is going to get advice from his two moms.
Yeah, I think that would be so cute. That'd be so funny.
Not just that, but it would be really interesting to see Elnor in his role of absolute candor approach them when they are both at their wits' end with each other and other things, and just be like, is this really valuable to you two? Like, why do you do this to yourselves? Just as the child
Yes.
approaching
the
approaching
tension between you makes me uncomfortable.
these maternal mentors, and just straight up through his honesty in better words than I can dish out now, really make them aware of the value of their relationship with each other over whatever the stupid thing bugging them is, that is the camel that breaks the straw, or the straw that breaks the camel's back. That would be a cool scene to see, because that might set Raffi and Seven on a different path to mutual healing in terms of whatever substance
bonding over this kid that they are bonding with.
Okay.
Like the bond together.
Yes.
Because obviously Raffi has a son that she has no maternal energy to put towards.
Right.
So she's going to be like keying in on Elnor. And Seven, she's just fucking great. I'm so glad she's still on the show, dude.
I'm happy that she turned into this really strong, independent badass on her own right, but I want to reserve my thoughts on that for the Seven retrospective.
Yeah, let's move into that though.
Words.
I think we're no. I want to talk about Seven and Elnor. That's our last little stop, I think.
So
right?
they had two significant scenes together where he's fighting the Romulans and she shows up. And then again at the end where they're sitting in the Borg cube, and if you're just listening to the audio, we have an image up here of Elnor and Seven sitting side by side in the crashed cube.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that, Wani. I'm just gonna.
The whole thing is fine, but that's the whole scene is because Narek is sneaking back in.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Security Ninja Wizard apparently didn't detect that at all. Well, he did because he goes after him, but he didn't detect him in that moment. Or if he did, he was letting him in, which I doubt that he would have done. So,
I just meant to talk more on the Elnor thing.
Yeah, for sure. Just contextually,
Yes,
that was kind of what was going on. However, Elnor says in this scene, why don't they just die about the XBs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a big issue with him saying that.
the writing is weird there.
The writing is so weird. It's bizarre to me that they would have him say that. He's not that naive. Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze.
Nothing came out. Oh no, God, let it
I
out.
know. I just had.
How do
I
you
just had
sneeze
the weirdest
silently?
thing.
What's that?
Star Trek. Okay, Star Trek has had a history of writing lines for people in a scene, and then for one reason or another, one of those actors is unavailable, so they take those lines and they just throw it at another person. The best example is in Star Trek Generations. You've got Chekhov.
Oh yes.
Chekhov is reading all of the lines that were written for DeForest Kelley as McCoy, and the production couldn't get insurance on DeForest Kelley for that role because he was a little frail.
Mhm.
And so they just gave those lines to Walter Koenig, and Walter Koenig says them. And if you watch that scene on Generations in the beginning where Walter Koenig is speaking to these various people, it makes more sense to sound like it's coming from a doctor than Chekhov.
Mhm.
Specifically when he says, you've just become nurses, come with me. That's a very McCoy line to say.
Yes.
So what if in this scene here, these lines weren't written for Elnor in 7, but they were written for Raffi in 7? Because Raffi would be the one who would sympathize more with not having a path and just thinking about the nihilism of it all. And then
Okay.
Raffi turning to 7 saying, because I'd miss you. Prelude.
But Raffi is with La Serena.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also,
It
like,
is
she was
weird.
available, I'm sure, to do the scene. So
That's a
This
thought.
scene
You're
is
right,
just
Dag. That's a thought.
Weird.
it would be a lot better, I think, with Raffi because, it just would have. I think it would have been. It's kind of like it's an odd scene.
For
With
Elnor's
Elnor.
optimism to
Mhm.
be replaced with this sort of fatalistic fatalism.
It is.
It's
It's like
weird.
it's like,
Raffi would
okay,
be
well,
perfect.
now that you've been a Borg, why don't you just kill yourself? It's really weird for Elnor to say that, and I think, is it in his character? Hard to say. He has so very few scenes.
Yes.
But if it is, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
it just
great.
feels weird.
It does feel weird for him to just say, like, why don't they just die? Like,
New
come
headcanon.
on.
That was Raffi. I accept it.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be better. It would be better. But
Right.
unfortunately,
I
he's stuck
can-
in there with 7 because he called
Right,
her
yeah.
there. So
Yeah. Why?
also,
I
that
believe
Borg
that.
should have been completely demolished.
The
At the
cube?
rate it was falling out of this. Yeah, the Borg
Yeah.
cube should have been completely just destroyed. The way it was falling from the sky.
But have air brakes from the flowers.
Even still, you would have left a crater the size
So-
of fucking Mars.
I
Like,
just want
in
to
that
point
planet.
out that Toyota manufactured that Borg cube, and after all the camera crews left, they were actually able to turn that Borg cube into an ad for how well their Borg cubes hold up under atmospheric reentry.
Toyota, really? Not Honda? I'm a Honda girl.
Oh,
No, I'm sorry, it's not Honda.
you guys.
Headcanon, it's Honda for me, so I'm just saying.
I mean, if anything,
No,
it's
I
the
think-
manufacturer of the
It's
car.
Volvo.
Who made-
It's
who
fucking
made the
Volvo
cube?
is what it is.
No, I
Who
think
manufactured the
the
cube?
Borg assimilated a Prius. That's why my head canon is.
Was
Yeah,
it
if your
Nissan?
Prius battery dies, you can just switch it out and like get a completely new car.
Yeah, no, it was Nissan. Nissan made the cube.
I will say my sister did total her Nissan. It wasn't her fault, but someone hit her. It protected her extremely well.
Well, how about
Yeah.
Nissan did a good job.
what about
there.
Ford?
So
Ford found on road dead. Fucker only runs downhill.
found on
That's, I mean,
What's-
Capellia Station doesn't start with an R.
Driver
Yeah.
returned on foot.
Yes, they all did. The drivers.
You
of
haven't
heard the Ford
Beautiful.
acronyms
Okay.
before? Watney?
I have
Okay.
found on road dead, whatever.
Fucked on
Car
rest day.
has excessive vehicular yields. Chevy.
You got me there.
So who are we doing for our next character assassination? Well, is there any more to be said about Elnor? I think we
Honestly, I think we did our due diligence
We
with the
did.
man.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
Strongest relationship with him is with Picard for sure. And then he starts
And now
developing
Raffi.
these ties. He really
And
doesn't
Simon.
have any connections with Girardi. That's not an important connection. Him and Rios don't have much going on there. Rios constantly refers to him as the kid, which, that sets up it could set up that big brother relationship later. But yeah, it was him and Picard and him and Hugh and him and Narek were, I think, the three most intense relationships that Elnor had over the
Mhm.
course of the show.
For
Mhm.
sure. I think Rios and Soji have like a big brother type
Yeah.
thing going on.
You can totally see like Soji having a better relationship with all the Rios holograms than Rios does.
Oh hell
that
yeah. Oh
next
my
season.
god, yes. That would be so great.
You just see like Emmett be
Please
like,
give us this. Please give
Emmett-
us this.
Emmett would just be like, yeah, she fixed my rendering and all she's going through and like tweaking the holograms so they just have a better processing effectiveness or whatever. They start
Mhm.
liking her more than they like Rios.
Mhm.
I'm
I
into
think
that. That would
next-
be amazing.
Next up, after this episode, we're gonna be taking a look at Mama Raffi herself.
Okay.
All
so,
right, Raffi.
Raffi's
We
going to be
can-
next. I think that'll be a good one.
Raffi
So-
under the microscope.
Yes, that will be our next character assassination. And thank you everyone for sitting with us on talking about Elnor. Watney, you want to tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find us? We will
Yeah,
assimilate your
sure.
ears everywhere. So here it is.
Always. We do have a Patreon. We would love if we could support us there. Patreon.com/BeyondTrek. Our Twitter, which we're super active on, is at BeyondTrekPod. So find us there. And then on Facebook, you can also find us Facebook.com/BeyondTrekProductions.
All right. Thank you, Wani. We're everywhere there. So, yeah. Any closing thoughts from anyone before we beam on out of here?
Give me a good Elnor arc. I demand it of thee.
Please. Yes.
Second. And as always, for all of your Trek expertise, go beyond with us every week. Bye.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.
Hi, I'm Nacho with Beyond Trek Productions. We're going to talk about Elnor today. Here's what I thought about Elnor. I think he's definitely very honorable. Yeah, Mistress Worf and Deanna Troi, honestly, with his honesty. And, well, he seems very compassionate a lot. Picard seemed to really bond with Elnor when he was a child and, well, as an adult right now. Because honestly, maybe I'm thinking about it now in my head. Maybe because Picard never really got a chance to have his own family, maybe he sees this as a second chance with Elnor. So he just teaches him how to fence and, well, tells him stories from Earth, like the Three Musketeers, and probably more with action and adventure. So he was basically the son Picard never had, because the last of his family, well, his nephew burned in that fire, so really Picard's the last Picard, and I guess he just wanted redemption because he never spent time with his nephew or any of her family. I think he definitely felt a little bit of failure when he left Elnor, but I think those two patched things up right when he got Elnor from the planet. So the synth attacked the fleet, destroyed it too. And I guess Picard felt responsible for that, maybe. And then he left, and maybe that did mess things up with Elnor, but I think right after, and 14 years later, I think he patched things up really quickly because Elnor's honest and, well, Picard's very wise, so he figures some stuff out real quick. For Elnor's character arc, honestly, he seemed very naive when he left the planet first, but when Picard took him out to space, show him everything, I think he became more aware of the world or the galaxy, I would say. But besides the naive part, he's very honorable. That's why I think he has a little mixture of warmth in him, because he pledged his life to Picard to protect him. I think he bonded with, I would have to probably say maybe a 7 of 9, because 7 of 9 kind of shows me a little bit parent figure or mentor, because she reminds me of one of the women he was raised with a little bit on the planet he was raised on. Elnor for the next season, I think maybe he'll be more of a leader than a follower, maybe. I'm Nacho with Beyond Track Productions. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.
We are Beyond Track Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.